Hare Krishna, welcome everyone. Good to see you all. Tonight we'll continue our study of Bhagavad Gita as it is by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And tonight we'll begin with text number 1 of chapter 9. Chapter 9 of Bhagavad Gita is called the most confidential knowledge because as we've explained previously, the first six chapters of Bhagavad Gita, they focus on karma yoga. The last 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita focus on jnana yoga. And these middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita focus on bhakti yoga. Bhakti means devotion to Krishna, devotion to the Supreme, to God. So when you have something confidential or something secret or hidden, you hide it in a secretive place. So the reason these 6 chapters, which are the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the reason they're in the middle is because they're hidden. The first 6 chapters are the Karma Yoga section. The last 6 chapters are the Jnana Yoga section. And these middle 6 chapters are hidden within the middle because they discuss bhakti or devotion to God. Of all the 18 chapters in the Bhagavad Gita, this 9th chapter, which we're beginning tonight, is considered to be the most confidential knowledge. That's why the chapter is called the most confidential knowledge. So it is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the essence of the essence. So we'll read the chapter. We'll begin the chapter tonight. If you have any questions or comments as we go, then please ask. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "My dear Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, I shall impart to you this most confidential knowledge and realization, knowing which you shall be relieved of the miseries of material existence." So, in the purport, Prabhupada says, as a devotee hears more and more about Krishna, he becomes enlightened. The messages of Krishna are full of potencies, and these potencies can be realized in topics regarding Krishna are discussed among devotees. This cannot be achieved by the association of jnanis, for it is realized knowledge. So, to understand these truths, you need to approach devotees, bhaktas, or those who are engaged in Krishna's service. A jnani is someone who studies. And it is not by theoretical study alone that you can understand this knowledge. You have to learn it by approaching someone who is applying it in their life. So you need to understand this knowledge by approaching a bhakta or a devotee, someone who practices this on a daily basis, who dedicates their life to serving Krishna. So without hearing and being directed by and being associating with a devotee, you will not be able to understand this knowledge because it is not theoretical, it is practical. And you need to practically learn how to apply it in your life. Prabhupada then says, the devotees are constantly engaged in Krishna's service. Krishna understands the mentality and sincerity of a devotee and gives him the intelligence to understand the science of Krishna in the association of devotees. Discussion of Krishna is very potent. And if a fortunate person has such association and tries to assimilate the knowledge, then he will surely make advancement towards spiritual realization. So we need to hear. Krishna begins chapter 7 in a similar way. Chapter 7 and chapter 9 are quite similar in many ways. Tatshrinu. Tatshrinu means just hear from me. This is how knowledge is attained. This is how we receive spiritual knowledge, by hearing. Shravanam. Spiritual life begins with hearing. When we hear from qualified sources, we make progress in our spiritual life. Right? If we don't hear from the right people, we don't make progress. So we progress when we are hearing from the right sources. Therefore, we should find those who are qualified to speak about Krishna, and we should hear from them. And in this way, we will begin to progress in spiritual life. Prabhupada then says, Lord Krishna, in order to encourage his devotees to higher and higher elevation in his potent service, describes in the 9th chapter matters more confidential than any already disclosed. So as we said, this is the essence of knowledge. This is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, Bhakti or devotion to Krishna. This is the essence. So we need to hear the essence, right? We need to hear the message of the Bhagavad Gita from a qualified person, and this will help us to advance in spiritual life. Then Prabhupada explains, one who is situated in the most confidential knowledge of Krishna is naturally transcendental. He therefore has no material pangs. Although he is in the material world, although one has a sincere desire to render loving service to Krishna, one is materially conditioned. He is to be considered liberated. So how to become liberated from our material desires, our material attachments? The most effective way is to hear about Krishna, or to hear the words or the instructions of Krishna, such as the Bhagavad Gita. So if we do this on a regular basis, we will become detached from this material world. So that is the secret of success in spiritual life. Some people just try to serve Krishna. They try to actively engage in his service on a daily basis, which is good. That's desired. But if we neglect to hear sufficiently about Krishna, we cannot progress properly in spiritual life. So we need to have both elements. We need to hear and chant about Krishna, and then do service. And in this way, we will have realizations about Krishna. Prabhupada then explains, the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita is more or less an introduction, and in the second and third chapters, the spiritual knowledge is confidential. The seventh and eighth chapters are specifically related to devotional service, and because they bring enlightenment in Krishna consciousness, they are more confidential. But the 9th chapter deals with unalloyed pure devotional service. Therefore, this is the most confidential. So unalloyed devotional service. This is the topic of the Bhagavad Gita ultimately, and this is the topic of the 9th chapter. Unalloyed devotional service means serving Krishna without material desires. Right? When we have material desires, we cannot sufficiently serve Krishna. We have to get rid of our material desires. So that is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. To learn to serve Krishna purely without material desires, and that will liberate us from attachment to this material world. Prabhupada says, this verse has special significance. Idam Jnanam, this knowledge, refers to pure devotional service, which consists of 9 activities. By practice of these 9 elements, one is elevated to Krishna consciousness. When one's heart is cleared of material contamination, one can understand the science of Krishna. So there are 9 types of bhakti, 9 types of ways to serve Krishna. And as we said, the most powerful and the beginning of all the others is hearing about Krishna. And when we hear about Krishna, we become enthused to serve him. Then Prabhupada says, in chapter 7, the opulent potency of Krishna was discussed, his different energies, the inferior and superior natures, and all this material manifestation. In chapter 9, the glories of Krishna will be delineated. The commentaries given by devotees are bona fide. No one can explain Bhagavad Gita if he is envious. One who criticizes Krishna's character without knowing him is a fool. Such commentaries should be very carefully avoided. So if you are not a devotee of Krishna, you cannot explain this science. You cannot teach it, you cannot explain it, unless you are devoted to Krishna. Just having some theoretical understanding is not sufficient. Right? One has to be a devotee, and by devoting oneself to Krishna, then one can become purified. Okay. Text number 2. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, it is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So Prabhupada explains in the purport, this chapter is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all philosophies explained before. It is the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the difference between the soul and the body. And the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional service. So this knowledge is said to be the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the essence of all knowledge. Krishna says within the Bhagavad Gita, the spiritual science is the topmost of all knowledge. There are many fields of knowledge. There are many types of knowledge. But of all types of knowledge, the most significant is the spiritual science, the science of Bhakti Yoga, the science of serving God without material motivation. That is the essence of all knowledge. So, because this is the essence of all knowledge, to study this is the highest study. The Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures. That's why it is called Gita-upanishad, right? It is the supreme philosophical science spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. So, by hearing this knowledge from Krishna, it is the highest knowledge of all. And it will take one to the highest level of understanding. Then Prabhupada says, generally, people are not educated in this confidential knowledge. They are educated in external knowledge. Unfortunately, there is no university or educational institution where the science of the spirit soul is instructed. Yet without the presence of the soul, the body has no value. Still, people place great stress on the bodily necessities of life, not caring for the vital soul. So If people do not understand their actual spiritual essence, which is the way the Bhagavad Gita begins, na tvevaham jatu nasam, na twamne me janati baha. You know, these opening verses of the Bhagavad Gita, asochanam vasochastwam, tehinosmin yata dehe, all of these opening verses, they describe the difference between matter and spirit, or the body and the soul. This is the beginning of spiritual life. If someone doesn't understand this, it means they have not understood the purpose of spiritual life. Right? That is the essence of spiritual life. So we need to understand this first. Once you've understood this, then you can build upon the knowledge. Then you can understand higher, more esoteric subject matters. Prabhupada says, the Bhagavad Gita, especially from the second chapter, stresses the importance of the soul. How can the soul, which is so active within this body, be inactive after being liberated? It is eternally active, and its activities in the spiritual kingdom are the most confidential part of spiritual knowledge, the king of all knowledge. This knowledge is the purest form of all activities. Man's sinful activities are the result of sin after sin. Those engaged in fruitive activities are engaged in different stages and forms of sinful reactions. So what do we mean by sin? Sin means, Prabhupada's using Old English here, the word sin. He was trained and educated in Scottish Churches College, and he would have gone to Bible studies. So, generally we hear this word associated with biblical studies, sin. The word sin in this context means material activities which are not for the pleasure of Krishna, of God. Right? When we're just engaged in material activities for our own pleasure, that is considered to be sinful activity. And what is the result of that kind of activity, that materialistic type of activity? It binds one to this material world, right? And it doesn't help one to become liberated from this material world. Right? So we have to be very careful about not engaging in activities which are simply for sense gratification, selfish satisfaction, and which take us away from our spiritual essence. Prabhupada says, as explained in 728, a person who has completely ended the reactions of all sinful activities and who is freely engaged in pious activities, being freed from duality, becomes engaged in devotional service to Krishna. Those who are actually engaged in devotional service are already freed from all reactions. So we want to become free from karma, right? Karma means material activities, right? We have to become free from karma. How do we become free from karma? By engaging in spiritual activities which are for Krishna's pleasure, which is the definition of devotional service. When we do that, we become free from sinful activities, from negative karma. Prabhupada then says, this chapter is called the King of Education because it is the essence of all the philosophies explained before. It is the essence of all knowledge that can be derived from the study of the Vedas. It is the most confidential because confidential or transcendental knowledge involves understanding the differences between the soul and the body. Actual devotional service begins after liberation. If one is engaged simply in the acts of devotional service, especially by hearing from realized souls, everything is revealed to him automatically, and then he can understand the science of Krishna. Thus, the king of all confidential knowledge culminates in devotional activities in the spiritual kingdom. Therefore, one should adopt it. So that is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. Text number 3. Those who are not faithful in this devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of enemies. Therefore, they return to the path of birth and death in this material world. In the purport, Prabhupada says, the faithless cannot accomplish this process of devotional service. That is the purport of this verse. Faith is created by association with devotees. Thus, faith is a most important factor for progress in Krishna consciousness. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that faith is the complete conviction that simply by serving Sri Krishna, one can attain all perfection. That is called real faith. So spiritual life is based upon faith or shraddha. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. That's the definition of faith. You know, we can't necessarily see Krishna. We can't necessarily see God. Right? We don't have the qualification to see Krishna, to see God. We don't have the eyes to see God. You can't see him with matter, with material faculty. So the only way that we can perceive Krishna, perceive God, is by engaging and purifying our senses by engaging in devotional activity or spiritual activity, right? And that is the definition of faith or shraddha. It means we can't see God, but we feel his presence, we know he's there, and we engage ourselves in Krishna's service. And by engaging ourselves in Krishna's service, we become purified, and then we can perceive him. Prabhupada then explains that the development of faith is the process of Krishna consciousness. There are 3 divisions of Krishna consciousness, Krishna conscious people. It is only by faith that one can advance in Krishna consciousness. So now text number 4. What Krishna is about to do now is explain the philosophy of Achintya, Beda, Tattva, which means the simultaneous oneness and difference of everything from Krishna. Krishna is everything, yet he is separate from everything. Right? So this is the understanding. Text number 4. By me in my unmanifested form, this entire universe is pervaded. All beings are in me, but I am not in them. So Prabhupada explains that Sri Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, etc. are not perceivable through the gross material senses. Only to one who is engaged in pure devotional service, under proper guidance, is he revealed. One can see Govinda always within himself and outside himself if one has developed the transcendental loving attitude towards him. So Lord Brahma says, Premanjanach Charita Bhakti Valochanena. Only when one has love for Krishna, when one has developed prema, can one perceive Krishna. Otherwise, he is imperceptible for the living entity. Right? We can't understand Krishna or perceive him, right, with our blunt material senses. Atahashi Krishna namadi nabhaved grayam indriyai sevanmukhi hijivado swayameva sparatyataha. We cannot perceive Krishna with blunt material senses. You need to purify your senses and develop love for Krishna, and then you will perceive him properly. Right? That is the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. Text number 5. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, I am not a part of this cosmic manifestation, for myself is the very source of creation. Prabhupada explains. Krishna is full of different potent energies, and his determination is itself actual fact. We may think of doing something, but there are so many impediments. But when Krishna wants to do something, simply by his willing, everything is performed so perfectly that one cannot imagine how it is being done. There is no difference between his mind and his self because he is an absolute spirit. This is Yogam Aishwaram, the mystic power of Krishna. So as Krishna is saying here, behold my mystic opulence. I maintain everything, but I'm not part of it. So what does Krishna mean here? Right? He means that everything is his energy. Everything expands from him. It comes from him. It is his energy. Therefore, in that sense, it is not different from him, in one sense. This world that we live in, it's all God's energy. Just like from the sun comes the sunshine. The sunshine is not different from the sun, but it is different from the sun. But it does not exist without the sun. So similarly, this material world that we are in, it exists because it is Krishna's energy. Therefore, because it is his energy, it is not different from him. But it is different from him because Krishna is separate from it. It emanates from him, but he is not the energy in his personal form. Right? His personal form stays separate. So it is him, but it is not him. Does it make sense? Makes sense? Yeah, it's logical. It is him, but it is not him. He is one with it, but he is different from it. This is called Achintya Beda Beda Tattva. He is one with it all, but he is separated from it all. This is the perfect understanding of the absolute truth. So this is what the Bhagavad Gita is speaking, right? Is trying to make us understand these points. Prabhupada says, Krishna says that everything is resting on him. This should not be misunderstood. Krishna is not directly concerned with the maintenance of this material manifestation. Although everything is resting on him, he is aloof. Although the planets are situated on Krishna's inconceivable energy, he is aloof from them. This is the inconceivable opulence of Krishna. Text number 6. Understand that as the mighty wind blowing everywhere rests always in the sky, all created beings rest in me. Prabhupada explains, for the ordinary person, it is almost inconceivable how the huge material creation is resting in Krishna. All the wonderful cosmic manifestations are existing by the supreme will of Krishna, and all of them are subordinate to that supreme will. As we generally say, not a blade of grass moves without the will of Krishna. Thus, by his will, everything is being created, maintained, and annihilated. Still, he is aloof from everything, as the sky is always aloof from the activities of the wind. So this is a continuation of the explanation that Krishna is everything, but everything is separate from him. So that's how he knows everything, because all of this that we perceive, it is his energy. He is situated within every atom, therefore he is Savagya. all-knowing. He knows everything because he is situated everywhere simultaneously, but he is separate from it all. Right? He doesn't get involved in the material energy. Right? He lets the material energy flow, right? And he lets everyone in this material world satisfy their material desires. He doesn't directly get involved. Right? But when one becomes interested to come back to him, then he becomes involved in their life and he makes arrangements to bring them back. Then Prabhupada says, it is out of fear of Krishna that the wind is blowing. The great planets are moving by the order of the Supreme. The material manifestation which appears to us to be very wonderful and great is under the complete control of Krishna. This will be further explained in the later verses of this chapter. So everything that we see, which is extraordinary, this world, this creation, Krishna says, it is just a spark of his splendor. And yet it is so beautiful and so powerful. Right? And this is just coming from Krishna's, a spark of his energy. So this makes us understand how powerful Krishna is, that all of this is just a spark of his energy, and it is so wondrous, everything that we experience in this world. Text number 7. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, all material manifestations enter into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I create them again. Prabhupada explains, the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this material manifestation are completely dependent on the supreme will of Krishna. After 100 of Brahma's years, when Brahma dies, the annihilation takes place. This means that the energy manifested by the Supreme Lord is again wound up in himself. Then again, when there is need to manifest the cosmic world, it is done by his will. He expands himself as many in this material energy, and the whole cosmic manifestation again takes place. So this material world is created and destroyed by Krishna's energy and by his representatives. That shows Krishna's potency. He doesn't even need to get directly involved, but he's so powerful he can allow it all to happen. Like when someone is very powerful, even in this world, they don't have to do everything. They just give their energy or give their finance or give their resources to other individuals, and they can take care of everything. So that is the potency of these extraordinary people. This is the potency of Krishna. Just by his potency, he can take care of everything in this material world. Text number 8. The whole cosmic order is under me. Under my will, it is automatically manifested again and again. And under my will, it is annihilated at the end. Prabhupada says, the activities of the different species of living beings are begun from the very moment of creation. It is not that all evolved. It is clearly stated here by the word avasham that the living entities have nothing to do with this process. The desires they had in their past life in the past creation are simply manifested again, and all this is done simply by Krishna's will. This is the inconceivable potency of Krishna. And after creating different species of life, he has no connection with them. The creation takes place to accommodate the inclinations of the living beings, and so Krishna does not become involved in it. So the living entities, we think we're creating things, but we're not actually creating very much. We're born in this world. We don't even know how we got here. We just appear within this world. And then we begin to manipulate the energy around us, and we think that we are very powerful. But we don't realize that everything is being created for us by a much higher power. And therefore, it is responsible and necessary for us to abide by the laws of the higher power and to not exploit this world, but to simply live in harmony with it and use the energy which has been given to us, all the creations in this world, in the service of Krishna. And in that way, we can purify ourselves. Text number 9. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached from all these material activities, seated as though neutral. So Prabhupada explains, one should not think that Krishna has no engagement. In the spiritual world, he is always involved in his eternal, blissful spiritual activities, but he has nothing to do with these material activities. Material activities are being carried on by his different potencies. Krishna is always neutral in the material activities of the created world. Although he has control over every minute detail of material activities, he is sitting as if neutral. He is transcendental to the dualities of this material world, nor is he attached to the creation and annihilation of the material world. The living entities take their forms according to their past deeds, and Krishna doesn't interfere with them. So Krishna is detached, he is neutral. This is the correct, because people say this all the time. One of the great philosophical questions that people have been asking for centuries and have not answered sufficiently is, why do bad things happen to good people? People always ask this all the time, right? In all the different religious traditions. They ask us all the time, why do bad things happen to good people? And an extension from that question is, why does God allow these things to happen? So we have to understand from studying the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is neutral. Krishna does not want us in this world. Krishna wants us to go back to the spiritual world to live with him. He doesn't want us in this world. He is neutral to it. And we want to live here. We left the kingdom of God. We came to this material world. And now we are suffering according to our karma. And Krishna is allowing it to take place because that's our desire. It's not his desire. He's neutral. Man proposes, God disposes. If you desire to live in this world and try to enjoy separately from Krishna, then you will get karma. So that means sometimes bad things will happen to you, even though you appear to be a good person. Right? So that is your karma. That is not coming from God. He is neutral. He's just waiting for you to turn around and come back to him. So people ask this question, why do bad things happen to good people? Because we may appear to be a good person now in this life, but in our previous life, we might have done so many bad things. So then the karma eventually catches up to us. So then we cannot complain that, we are victims. Actually, Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, it is said that for all the suffering that we go through in life, because whenever we suffer, we tend to blame other people or other circumstances or even God himself. People blame all sorts of things for our suffering. But the Bhagavatam says there is only one person to blame, and that is you. Because all the suffering we are going through, we created in our previous life. We perform negative karma. So then in this life, you will receive that karma. So we only have ourselves to blame. That's the reality. In material consciousness, we may think that there are external circumstances that we can blame for our suffering, but actually it's because of us. Krishna doesn't want us to suffer. He wants us to come back to him. But he remains neutral. Until we're ready to surrender, then he does not get involved in this world. Does it make sense? Yeah. Okay. Text number 10. This material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Here's a famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada says in the purport that Krishna, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the supreme director. All the living entities, although born under the glance of Krishna, take their different bodies according to their past deeds and desires. So Krishna is not directly attached to this material creation. He simply glances over material nature. Material nature is thus activated, and everything is created immediately. Because he glances over material nature, it is undoubtedly activity on the part of Krishna. But he has nothing to do with the manifestation of the material world directly. Material nature, without the superintendence of Krishna, cannot do anything. Yet Krishna is detached from all material activities. So Krishna glances at this world. But the potency of his glance puts everything into motion, and everything continues to work, just like a clock. So there's a clock on the wall over there. So the clock was created by a man, and it works. The man walks away from it, and the clock works. It goes on and on and on. So the person who created it, he walks away, and then it runs of its own accord. So Krishna, he puts this universe into its natural rhythm, but then he is detached from it, and it just operates of its own accord. It is a superior creation because a clock eventually runs out, it eventually stops, whereas Krishna's creation does not stop. The sun, the moon, the planets, like everything is so precise, we can calculate the exact second of a lunar or solar eclipse 1,000 years from now. That's how precise the universal clockwork is. Just like we had a full moon on Saturday, just gone. The next full moon is on September the 7th, and there will be a lunar eclipse on the next full moon. There will be an eclipse. That can be calculated thousands of years ago. That's how precise. Steps away from it and he just lets it run, right? And we're absorbed in it. And when we become detached from it, then we turn back to him. Text 11, another famous verse. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the supreme Lord of all that be. So, Prabhupada explains, the foolish consider Krishna ordinary because they do not know the confidential activities of Krishna and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, and that he is the proprietor of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone, because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications. They deride him. So, according to this philosophy, God himself came to earth 5,000 years ago. We believe that God himself, Krishna himself, came to earth 5,000 years ago. So people saw him. And some people, they think, well, that's not God. So Krishna says in this verse of the Gita, they are muta. Muta means foolish. Because they do not have the proper vision or the proper understanding. They cannot accept his supremacy. So therefore, Krishna says, people like that, they do not understand Krishna's transcendental nature. They do not understand, for a start, they think, well, if God has a form or a body, which is spiritual, but they think if he has a form or a body, that body must be matter like ours. It must be material. Right? So they put limitations on his form because they don't understand, because of their ignorance, that God can have a spiritual form and has a spiritual form. So we can't judge him like we judge ourselves. Right? His form is spiritual or transcendental. He is transcendental. Even though he may appear human-like, you see pictures of Krishna like we have here, right? He appears human-like, but he is not human, right? We're created in his image, but he is above and beyond. Text number 12. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Prabhupada says, those who engage in fruitive pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated will never be successful because they deride Krishna. Such demoniac miscreants never surrender to Krishna. Therefore, their mental speculations arrive at the false conclusion that the Jiva and Krishna are one. Such atheistic and demoniac cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. So they put limitations on Krishna, right? Which is the ignorance of the conditioned soul. The ignorance of the conditioned soul. They think because God has a form, therefore he is limited. That's why in Islam and other traditions, they say God, you cannot describe God's form. If you put if you go into a mosque, there's no form. It's just an open space. Why is that? Because they say God is infinite, and if you have a form, that limits God. But just because God has a form, just because he has a body, which is spiritual, that does not limit him. He is unlimited. So it's just an incomplete understanding. They need to cultivate more spiritual knowledge. Text number 13. O son of Prita, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So Prabhupada says, one becomes free from the control of material nature as soon as one surrenders his soul to Sri Krishna. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside of Krishna because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma develops through association with pure devotees. Pure devotees are always engaged in the unswerving service of Sri Krishna. So this is another famous verse. One who is engaged in Krishna's service comes in, even in this world, one who is devoted to Krishna, they become absorbed in the Daivi Prakriti, which means the spiritual energy. And even though they appear to be in this world, they're actually transcendental to this world, right? Just as Jesus says, be in this world, but not of the world. So we may be in this world, but when you're engaged in Krishna's service, you are spiritualized, purified. And therefore you do not accrue new karma and you become liberated from your attraction and attachment to this world. So the more we engage in Krishna's service, the more we become purified of our material attachments. Text number 14, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Prabhupada explains that the Mahatma is always engaged in the 9 activities of devotional service. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of Sri Krishna in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of Sri Krishna. That is full Krishna consciousness. So one who is fixed on serving Krishna, he becomes Dritavrata. Dritavrata means firm determination or a fixed vow to attain Krishna. This is what we have to become like. If we want to go back to Krishna and to transcend this world, we have to become firm in our vow, like a fixed determination that we will achieve Krishna at all costs. Because the material energy will try to distract us and take us away from Krishna and keep us here. But a devotee has to become very firm and very fixed that he will go back to Krishna. And the last verse for tonight, others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. And Prabhupada says, This verse is the summary of the previous verses. Those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatma. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma, but who worship Krishna in different ways. So this is our choice. We have to make the choice, each one of us. If we're determined to reach Krishna, Krishna will give us all facility and all support to go back to him. But in the same way, you have to take a strong vow if you want to go back to Krishna. You have to be very determined. To stay in this world, you have to be very determined as well. You know, it takes a lot of energy just to survive in this world. So it's better off that we use that energy to become liberated from this world and to go back to Krishna. So we'll stop there. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you next week. Okay. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Okay. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Prabhu.
See you soon.